Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Over It. My name is Michelle Kinney. I am co-founder of the Seneca Project and one of your co-hosts today. We also have Julie Roginski. She is author of Salty Politics Substack. And we also have Joanne Carducci, JoJo from Jurors. Are you effing kidding me? Is her Substack. I hope you all check it out. So we are down a Tara this week. She is doing much more fun things in other countries, having lots of fun and getting sunshine and warmth. So we wish her all the fun and all the best. We miss her, obviously, but we're going to be here having a conversation about all the crazy things that we are not only over it, but maybe into also this week. So where should we go first? What should we start with?
Let's go ahead.
No, Julie, I said we should go to somewhere sunny.
Yeah.
In Tara on the beach, which is where we should go. But since
let's be real,
stuck in our houses, I think we should go to the positive stuff first, because
I think so too.
And the positive thing that I want to focus on is Cory Anthony Booker. I think that's his middle name.
I didn't know that.
I think so. Who, like, I don't know about you guys. When he first said he was going to go do this, I was like, okay, nice gimmick.
Yeah.
And I think for me, because I think I told you guys this, but maybe some people don't know, I was his consultant on his first two Senate races. So I've known Cory Booker for a really, before that, he was the mayor of New York. I knew him back then too. Anyway, I've known Cory for a really long time. And I was like, okay, this is going to be the typical Cory Booker thing where he's going to go on the floor and he's going to talk about, love and peace. And I'm not really in a love and peace kind of mood.
Kumbaya, Cory.
Yeah. And pull a Cory, right? Which, by the way, I have to tell you guys, for people who don't know him, he really is that way in real life. Like it's not a show. And I know that because actually I was one of the people that was running debate prep for him on his campaigns. And there is nothing in the world that will strip you down and turn you into the worst version of yourself than debate prep, because you are sitting locked up in a room for days on end as people like me throw horrific jabs at you to see how you're going to react. And so you really get to see the essence of a person. I'll tell you something. He is really what you see is what you get with him, which is not typically the case with politicians. But I was not sure I was in the mood for that. I was not sure I was in the mood for peace and love, Cory Booker, in the horror that we're living in. And then he kind of reeled me in and reeled me in and reeled me in. And then by the time he was almost done, it was like I was almost like in tears and inspired and felt the cynicism that I have on a daily basis just kind of, I don't know about wash away for good, because let's not get crazy, but I mean, really dissipate a lot. And so I texted him this morning. No surprise, he did not respond, because he's probably dealing with 1,000 of them, but also
he's probably asleep.
But I texted him and just said, I want to thank you just for a few moments for making some of us not feel cynical about the world. That's all. Yeah. And I said, no need to respond back. Just thank you for kind of making me not feel cynical for a little bit. And I really meant that. And I really do mean that, because I just thought he's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Like, I know that, because a lot of people don't want to deal with the cynicism, or do want to feel cynical and do want to feel angry. And that's what makes them. And by the way, I'm there most of the time. But he also did something, and Mary in the comments just said this. He used the speech to teach and engage, not just to stall for time. That's true, because Strom
didn't read Green Eggs and Ham.
He didn't read Green Eggs and Ham, Ted Cruz. He also did something that Strom Thurmond did when he had previously held the filibuster, which is that Strom Thurmond, when I was not there in 1957, thank the sweet BG.
You look great, Julie.
Yeah. I do have some good Strom Thurmond when I worked in the Senate, though, because I actually overlapped with him when I worked in the Senate. I can get to that in a second. But what Strom Thurmond did is Strom Thurmond literally read the criminal code of every single state, 48 states at the time in the nation. And then he read speeches from like George Washington, Alexis de Tocqueville. I guess that's a good way to kill time, as is Green Eggs and Ham. But Booker didn't do that. What Booker did, he actually talked about what is at stake for the country. And he appealed to our better angels. And, I don't want to sit here getting all sappy, because that's not really my own cup of tea. But I do feel really sappy about it. And Joe, he's your senator, because Michelle and I talk with Chuck Schumer here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
What do you-
I'm so proud of my senators both, because I mean Andy Kim brought his kids to watch. I'm incredibly proud of Senator Booker because, as he said, the last person who the record was held by someone who didn't want someone like him to be able to do what he was standing there doing. And he made good trouble, as he said, and he was disrupting. And we know that there are not a lot of tools in our toolbox right now to stop what they are trying to do, but standing up, physically standing up and disrupting and saying, I am here, you have to go through me, that sets a tone. This went so viral that my kids came home from school and said, Cory Booker's blowing up the internet, Mom. I'm like, damn, I mean, this thing was going crazy on TikTok. So I have chills. I don't know him. Call me, because please. I think we could work together nicely. But I did meet him very briefly in Chicago, and that's the kind of energy we need right now. I'm super proud and impressed and blown away. And look, maybe people don't understand, it didn't change anything or whatever, but yesterday so many things gave me hope. That was one of them, right? Because we've been asking them to do that. Obviously, the huge margins that we've gained in Florida. Yes, we didn't win those seats, but those numbers, that is a very good sign that should scare the shit, sorry, Julie's dad, out of Republicans. And then, of course, the pièce de résistance is Wisconsin. So, Booker, also, shit, I forgot, the bipartisan vote about, making sure that women who've just had babies can vote in absentee vote, right? While they're home with their newborns. These things gave me hope that the will of the American people is strong. Sort of Cory Booker started it off, and I think the day just kind of kept going. So
why don't we play that
energy
clip?
I'm coming into today.
Why don't we play that clip? And Chuck Schumer makes a cameo here. This is not Chuck Schumer should be making.
It's not about you, Chuck.
Yeah, it's not about you, Chuck, but why don't we play that clip right now just to see what happened when he broke that Strom Thurmond record?
John?
Would the senator yield for a question?
Chuck Schumer, it's the only time in my life I can tell you no.
I just want to tell you a question. Do you know you have just broken the record? Do you know how proud this caucus is of you? Do you know how proud America is of you?
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies.
Yeah. I mean, that's some West Wing shit. You know what I mean? That's the drama that I crave, but it's also just makes you feel good. It makes you feel like there's fighters out there for us, because I know we've talked about it on the show. We talked about it in the group chat and in our own private lives, just how, depressed we've all been, feeling like no one is going out to fight for us and no one understands what it means to fight. And Cory Booker, to Julie's point, what you see is what you get. And it comes through in the way that he talks. He's no bullshit. And I believe the words that he says. And, shout out to his staff for not only being there with him through all that time, but to prepare someone to talk for 25 hours and 4 minutes. And to your point, both of you, not regurgitating speeches and legal codes and everything else, to actually speak for that amount of time with something with substance and meaning. I mean, that's no easy feat, not by any means. And I hope that we will see more of these, not just from Cory Booker, from other members, because when you don't have power, all you can do is delay and obstruct. And these are the things that we're going to have to do to, at the very least, slow them down.
And they did it. They did it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what Republicans were known for that, right? They did it all the time. So we should do
Right.
the same. All right. Go ahead, Julie.
And he did it in a way that was really authentic to him. And I think that's really important, right? Because I'm a very different person than Cory Booker. Excuse me. I'm a lot more cynical. I'm a lot more pugnacious in an overt way than Cory Booker is. That would not have worked for somebody like me. It's not going to work for, I think, a lot of other senators for different reasons.
Right.
Because they're not, as I said, they're not, a lot of them are not about peace and love. There are people who are Chris Murphy is a different kind of fighter. He's a great fighter, but he's a different kind of fighter.
Right.
So I think the one lesson that I think we should all take from this, all of us in our own individual lives, is that we should stand up to this in our own authentic way, in a way that is authentic to us. And as much as I didn't think that the peace and love moment was going to work in this dark, horrible Hobbesian world that Donald Trump has foisted upon us, the reality is it works for Cory Booker.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's the lesson to learn here, especially as a Black, and part of this made me so happy. I mean, Strom Thurmond, when he gave that filibuster, basically said something along the lines of that this is going to be like, the most devastating thing in the world if Black people have the same rights as white people. I mean, literally, that was like a line. And that was 1957, not that long ago, I might add.
Right.
And to have a Black man from New Jersey break that record
with his life and family story, which I won't get into, but he actually does a video on his Instagram about this, about the house that he grew up in and how they got the house. And another couple that it is a remarkable story of how Cory Booker has gotten to where he is today. And it's what an incredible American story.
Yeah,
and it's that it's now too. It's that it's now
right.
When we are seeing and experiencing and being subjected to them pushing and pulling us backwards, where they more closely resemble Strom Thurmond than they do,
right.
The Republican Party that we might have grown up with. They're and it's not histrionic to say that they're trying to whitewash African American history. They're trying to remove their accomplishments. J.D. Vance took 900 books out of the African American History Museum. So for Cory Booker to stand up there in this moment and surpass that hateful record as a Black man from New Jersey is even more powerful, because he's standing in the breach and saying, no, I am here. You have to contend with me. I am a reality.
Right.
You cannot erase.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You can't erase me. You can't erase me.
And he also says something that I think is really powerful as well. A little different from what we're talking about here. I'm going to read you this quote, and then I think we could all agree why this is powerful. This is what Booker said. I confess, from the floor of the Senate, I might add, I confess that I've been inadequate, that the Democrats have been responsible for allowing the rise of this demagogue. He was talking about Trump, of course. That, of course, is an admission to the rest of us about what we've been screaming about all along. It is not the Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries doubling down on, well, what do you expect us to do? We're just in the minority. We have no, he, Clinton-esque, he kind of feels our pain. He felt it, acknowledged it. He understands that they have been inadequate. When was the last time you heard a politician, especially in this day and age, take any responsibility?
Especially a man.
I mean, just based on that alone, Cory Booker deserves all of our support. Just one phrase alone, the fact that he is a grown-up human being who said, you know what, we screwed up. We haven't risen to the moment. We did not do enough to prevent Donald Trump's rise. We did not do enough at the moment right now. We're not doing enough to prevent him from wreaking havoc on our country, on our alliances, on the world. I thought that was such an important admission and such an important point that he made, and especially in the age of Trump, where these guys won't even admit that they, should not have deported.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we can get to that in a second. Or they can admit that, maybe we shouldn't have been texting classified information on our Signal chat. Oh, by the way, Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, maybe you shouldn't be putting that stuff on your Google email.
Gmail.
Gmail. But her emails.
Here's a grown-up, a 50-something-year-old, I think Cory's 55, 56, grown-up man who is like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take responsibility for it. Like, just on that alone. Thank you, Cory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
I
wears his
know.
heart on his sleeve. That part too, Julie, you said, you know him. That's the other thing again of the authenticity piece of this. But that's what we've been missing, and that's what they want us to be lacking, is that humanity, that heart and soul, that emotional connection to someone who is standing up and speaking their truth. That's what they want to take away from us, because in that space they can consume all of the energy, the oxygen. And that's where they really pull us apart. And that's when people can be capable of, as we know throughout history, past is prologue, people can be capable of committing the worst atrocities imaginable when you disconnect them from each other and from themselves and from their truth. And that's also why it had to be him. You know what I mean? Like, I can't see an Adam Schiff, who's very great. He's an excellent orator, he doing the same thing with the same impact, because we had to feel it, because he on his sleeve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good way. That's such a good point. And you're so right, Joe, about how we become disconnected from each other, because I want to go back to what we just talked about, briefly touched on, which is that there are people walking around in this country who think it is okay to take a young father away from his deeply autistic son, throw him on a plane back to the country from which he fled because he did not want to be a gang member, because they threatened his parents' life that if he didn't join their gang in El Salvador, he would be killed and they would be killed. He fled. He came here. He asked for asylum. He played by the rules. And they kidnapped him, and nobody in his family, his wife, his nonverbal child, and Joe, you could talk about this much more because you actually worked with kids like this, had any idea where he was until his wife happened to catch a glimpse of his tattoos, which she obviously recognized, in that horrible hellhole gulag in El Salvador. And now the United States Department of Justice, rather than saying, like Cory Booker did, we made a mistake. Of course, their mistakes are a trillion times worse than anything to talk about, and we're going to get him back, are saying, whoopsie, we can't do anything about that because he's under the jurisdiction of a foreign government. You can't call the president of El Salvador, to whom you're paying $1 trillion to house these people, and get him back. You can't tell Kristi Noem, who was parading in her little
$60,000 watch,
$50,000 Rolex, down there, to go down there and get him back. That's what I mean. Like, we've become completely disconnected from our humanity. We are no longer human beings if this is how we treat people.
And it's cruel, like the cruelty and meanness of people in this country. And I feel like it's, it's one thing to kind of see it on TV and hear the pundits like arguing with each other and hear a politician saying awful, nasty things, but the trickle down has come to everyday people who see these other human beings as less than, see them less as human beings and not deserving of the same rights. It doesn't matter if you're here, if you were born here or born elsewhere. If you are here in this country, the laws and the protections that we all benefit from, they apply to everyone. And the fact that they are taking these people without any due process, without any warrant, is really just, it is a very, very dark and ugly stain on our country. And maybe I'm naive, but I would have thought by 2025 that we have learned enough about our past to not bring this into our future. But here we are, and which leads me to, I'd like to get to my over it, maybe, since it has a little bit to do with this. I am over mushmouth Tom Homan.
You've got like a one woman personal like
vendetta
against Tom Homan. I love it, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
It's like Homan v. Kinney, like a whole totally
separate. Yeah. So nobody's more deserving of this.
Yeah.
Well, let me preface this with, he is from a couple town. I mean, he's about 20 years older than me. It looks 50 years older than me, but a couple towns over is where he grew up. He was a village cop in a village called West Carthage, which has about 1,600 people who live there. And when he was a village cop there, I'm sure that it's like 95% white. I'm sure it was like 99 or 100 then. This is not a man who has spent any amount of time around anybody who is different than him, except for in a role of law enforcement or border protection. So this is how he sees people, as he sees them as animals and terrorists and criminals, and he cannot connect with these people to the point that we were talking about in any human way. So not only that, but he's just like mush mouth, like a mouthful of marbles. Every time he talks, I feel like there's a piece of corn that's going to fly out of his mouth. Can we tee up the little the montage that I put together of him talking where you can't understand what he's saying?
But we have more operational control of the border right now we've ever had in the history of this nation. And President Trump did that in 2 months. Joe Biden couldn't do in 4 years. We removed terrorists from the country this weekend. I can't believe any media would question the president's ability to remove terrorists from this country. We're going to arrest illegal aliens. We're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats. Military absolutely has a role. The military that Pete Hegseth sent to the border is working very closely with the Mexican military. Look, I'm not an attorney, but I know how to read. President Trump has designated these cartels terrorist organizations. Mayor Wu testified under oath that Tom Homan was lying. Yeah, and we're going to continue to do that, like I said, through Title VIII and court orders. An old law, not as old as Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we? You know, I'm not an attorney, but I can read. Look, there's various methods. No, I've noticed in the media this week, a lot of them don't have criminal histories. Well, a lot of gamers don't have a criminal history.
When my kids are little, we do chubby bunny.
He said he sounds like Luther Brazzi in the chat. That's such a great point. He really does. I mean, English is not my first language, so perhaps somebody needs to translate for me.
I don't think it's his.
What the hell kind of language are these? What is that, a patois that you guys speak up in the North Country there? What is that?
I didn't think so. I mean, the accent up there is very like Canada, Wisconsin, Michigan. It's very like, but not that. Like that is something else. And
he fell on his head too many times. That's what that is.
It's marbly. It's maybe I had a little whiskey with my breakfast. And somebody said he's a tough guy LARPer, which I happen to agree with. And the reason I want to tie it into this, so there's something actually that's going on in northern New York where he lives, where one of his, the places that he lives. And I'm not doxing anyone. This is public information. They've been talking about it on the news. So there's a little village called Sackets Harbor, New York. It's a tiny little village on Lake Ontario, population 1,400 people. And ICE went to a farm nearby. And they were looking for some criminal somewhere, but then they went into a different house without a warrant, and they picked up a mother, and her 3 children, one of which is 8 years old. The community is horrified by this. This is from the Democratic Committee of Jefferson County, which is up there. On March 27th, 2025, in the hour before school, ICE detained 3 Sackets Harbor students in grades 3, 10, and 11. All persons within the territory of the United States are entitled to due process of law. It applies to citizens and non-citizens alike. The purpose of the rally, so they're having a rally on Saturday with the rest of the country. There's going to be a big day of protest across the country, and they're going to have one in Sackets Harbor as well. And it's saying to ensure the message, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, to ensure that the message is clear, we ask participants to adhere by the guidelines. So obviously they're hoping to be peaceful and they're not going to trespass, but they are going to go past Tom Homan's house in this tiny little village and protest there as well. But let's see what else. Yeah, we have also a statement here from the New York Immigration Coalition that these people were wrongfully abducted. And like, that's the thing. Abducted, kidnapped. For several days, nobody knew where this mother and her children were. Last I heard, they are in, the mother and children have since been transported to ICE's Karnes County Detention Facility in Texas. I think we have something else here too. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, statement from Kathy Hochul, obviously, who's like no like bleeding heart liberal by any means, Kathy Hochul, but you know, she obviously understands again the law and due process and these things that matter that apparently don't matter to people like Tom Homan, because he only sees people with brown skin as terrorists and criminals. And this is just another flyer for the rally to support the students. And I think we have a news clip as well from some local news up there. We can play that.
School near Watertown, New York is taking action after 3 students were taken during an ICE raid at a farm last week. This happened at Sackett's Harbor on Friday. Agents reportedly went looking for one man, Marcel Mayer, who was charged with child pornography. But in addition to his arrest, 7 other people were taken to a nearby Border Patrol station to be processed, including the 3 children. The superintendent of the Sackett's Harbor School District says she's been calling local, state, and federal representatives for answers.
These kids are, they're classmates, they're good friends, they are wonderful students, and they are part of the fabric of our school community, and they need to be returned to their classrooms.
The New York Immigration Coalition says the search where the kids were found was conducted without a warrant. The kids and their mother were reportedly taken to a detention center in Texas. Sources say they have been living in the U.S. for about 2 years. Advocates have planned a rally on Saturday to support the school's efforts to bring the students back. Jefferson County Democrats say participants will march past Bordersall Tom Homan's house in West Carthage.
So they unfortunately got West Carthage is where he's from, but it's not where he lives, and that's not where the protest is going to happen. But I say all this to say, you know, we've talked about Elise Stefanik and Claudia Tenney, who both represent that area, and how ruby red it is up there. It's very MAGA, especially in the rural areas where a farm would be, a dairy farm. It's a family-owned farm. I go there very often when I'm home. They have a little petting zoo thing across the street. I always like to go and pet the goats. It makes me very happy. I've toured the dairy farm. It's a lovely place, lovely people. You can show that, but they're MAGA people. This family who owns it are very, very big Trump supporters. If we can throw this up. Yeah, this is the sign that's out in front of the farm. These are the people who own and run the farm and have for many decades. And so I don't mean any disrespect to the people for having, different views than me. But I wonder if things like this, the cruelty and the lack of humanity from someone like Tom Homan, who is someone who is known up in that area, they treat him like a celebrity. But the things that he's doing are hurting people, not just businesses, but they're hurting human beings. And they're terrorizing the children from the schools who are feeling completely unsettled and very rattled and traumatized by what has happened to their friends. This is not a big place. It's very, like I said, very rural and very, very Republican. And I have to wonder if these sorts of things are going to change the minds in places like this around the country. So Tom Homan, I am over you. I'm over your mush mouth. I'm over your cruelty. I'm over whatever it is that you drank this morning before you had your breakfast and went on television.
Pete has blood.
Right. And I'm over what you're doing, not only to this country, but the community that you and I are both from. So,
but it is making a difference, Michelle, because we only have to see what happened in Wisconsin and in Florida yesterday,
right,
and in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago, to see that even Trump voters are turning on this in a really drastic way. Because again, when you have deep ruby red districts like you had in Florida 1 and Florida 6, which Joe, you spent, God, blood, sweat, and tears vote out there. And you should be proud of yourself, because the reality is those seats were most likely, I mean, the reality of them flipping are next to zero. But Democrats got 50% more votes than they did 4 months ago, 5 months ago. It's been less than 5 months. So, and Wisconsin, again, Trump won by a little bit, less than a point, but he won. They just lost that by 10 points. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where this part of this seat that this state Senate district that this Democrat won 2 weeks ago, has not elected a Democrat to the legislature since the 19th century.
It's amazing.
Did. And when I said that on air a couple of days ago. And Charlie Dent, who I don't know if you guys know, but is a former Republican congressman, was a really wonderful guy from Northampton County, Pennsylvania. He texted me and he said, listen, I heard what you said about Lancaster County, and I served in the state Senate before he went to Congress in the Pennsylvania legislature. And those people, they're like Amish. They speak, speaking of patois, he said they speak their own dialect. They could not be more conservative. In my biggest dream, I could not have imagined that this county would ever vote for a Democrat, but they did.
Yeah. There are parts of Florida that hadn't gone since JFK.
Right. Well, we have
Florida.
We have that data. What was it? What county was it that flipped?
It was just up, I think.
Yeah.
That was
pull
in
that up.
I think that was in Gaze in Florida.
Escambia, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
But I mean,
Like,
listen, if I'm Mike Lawler or I'm Tom Kaine, or I'm just listing, any of these Republicans, the two on Long Island, Claudia Tenney for that matter, certainly the one on Staten Island, Nicole Militakis. If I am any of these people, you want to keep voting for this nonsense? They're stuck. They're stuck between a rock and an Elon, right? They're stuck. They're stuck between. Holy shit! We've got to do this right now. We've got to do the right thing for ourselves politically. And this guy who's going to threaten them with billions of dollars of campaign expenditures if they don't fall in line.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think Stefanik's going to be safe either. And she sold her soul to be a Trivial Pursuit question answer. But I just want to real quick before we move on from this idea of the cruelty. I think that their calculus is wrong. I think that Republicans were their calculus was that, just like every other authoritarian playbook throughout the history of time, that if they can kind of see what they can slowly slide us down in terms of what will they react to, what will they respond to, what will they be outraged by, and then when there's no outrage to something outrageous, then they'll slide it a little bit further, and so that they can eventually accommodate the worst things possible, which, by the way, Monpa MAGA, as I like to call you, and that is coming for you too. And maybe, just maybe, people standing up and saying, actually, no, I'm putting my foot down now, was not something they counted on. And that is what's happening. And then it continues to happen the more we, sound the alarm and call attention to it. But they underestimated, I really do believe they underestimated both the will and the character and the humanity of the American people, and I believe it will be to their own collective peril. We are seeing that. This is just epic, right? Like, literally, like, that picture cracks me up, but it says everything, and everyone feels a certain kind of way when they see it.
It's so good.
You know what I mean? And they're all whining. By the way, we have a lot of cheese for your wine, MAGA bros, in my replies.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm watching them.
Cry harder, MAGA bros. Cry harder.
This one, the billionaires bought this election for Susan Crawford. Are you fucking kidding?
Wait, what billionaire? Who?
George
the one that spent $19 million to lose?
More. They added it all up. Oh, when they added it all up, it's close to 60 something million.
Jesus Christ.
George Soros put in $2 million.
$2
million. I think Reid Hoffman put in like a little.
Time to celebrate.
But like the only billionaires that put money in, I think, were Soros, Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, and Reid Hoffman. So and those three combined, I think, did like 3 million or 3.5 million.
Yeah. Elon's handing out $1 million checks, like they're Tic Tacs, and Donald Trump's about to grab the woman by the pussy.
And the funny thing, that check, so the two people that he randomly gave those checks out to, one, the young man was the head of the Wisconsin College Republicans. Wow, amazing. She works for some company that's the head of the company is a huge donor to the Republican Party. So like, this was not chosen at random. I don't even believe that he gave them $1 million each. And then I look at this silly ass picture of him with the cheese on his head. I'm like, first of all, do you even know what football is? Second of all, shocking that this didn't work. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, just looking at him clowning up there. I'm like, it just, I can't. He is a caricature of a caricature of Elon Musk. And, you know, on both sides of the spectrum too. I didn't know that Reid Hoffman had to give money to this, race, but that makes sense. And, you know, for anybody who doesn't know who Reid Hoffman is, he is a Democratic donor who was part of the PayPal founders, part of the PayPal mafia, so to speak, that Elon Musk was also a part of. And Rita Hoffman doesn't really have a lot of really nice things to say about Elon Musk. But, you know, it goes to show that a lot of people who came out of that group of people, there are a couple good ones who are trying to do good for the United States and for our democracy.
And by the way, speaking of mom and pa, MAGA, who Jojo talks about, and I know there's some watching this right now because they're in the chat, and thank you again for helping us with our algorithm. We welcome you. But you guys, have you figured out that you've been had yet? Because you're probably sitting there signing petitions thinking you're going to get these $1 million checks. The fix is in always. The fix has always been in. Always. Donald Trump just moved to sell a few $1 billion worth of shares of Truth Social today.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Are you making money off of that scam? No. He's going to dump it. He's going to take the money, and then the whole thing's going to go under.
Yeah, we've seen that before. Yep, exactly.
So congrats.
Yeah.
You're complete and utter idiots. And I feel sorry for you. I'm not even saying that to you to make fun of you, because you need to think about the fact that you don't ever put your faith in any politician like that ever. You don't know them. They're not your mom who cares about you. They are there for their own purposes, and you are there to either hold them accountable to do what you want them to do, or you punish them by voting them out of office. When you unconditionally support people like this, you're a patsy.
And the mark. And the thing what I want to know, but they're so doubling down on this now, is where is their winning? Is it really just that they got plastic straws in the Gulf of fucking America? Is that really it? Because I'm looking around, and here's an example. Somewhere a local business I was talking to, one of the deep state employees who whispered to me, because she's a Democrat, that someone she worked with has a child, an adult child, who got fired from her government job and returned here to her mom's house because she has no job. And her mom voted for Trump and said, you know what? I think it's fine. He's trimming the fat. This is good. This is good for America. I now have to support my adult daughter and her family because I voted for the guy who screwed my adult daughter and her family, but it's fine. So that's winning. Is it that they get to deport or kidnap, abduct a father of an autistic child because he had a tattoo? Is that winning? Like, when and where is all the winning that they're telling me to cry harder about? Because I'm so far, I just don't see it.
I'll tell you what they think the winning is. The winning is the liberals sticking it to the libs, right?
Yeah. Like, they see us mad and they're like, oh, we got him. I'm like, you didn't get me.
You guys.
You're on the same roller coaster, fools.
Yeah, exactly. Ride. You could be motivated all you want by our outrage, but our outrage and your schadenfreude over our outrage is not going to pay for your medical bills. It's not going to pay for your Social Security. It's not going to pay for your Medicare, your nursing home, your mom's nursing home. It's not going to create jobs. It's not going to save your 401k. And that's just in the first
eggs.
months. It's not going to lower the price of eggs for you. Like, So you want to sit there and be like, well, you know what? This sucks, but at least those libs, it's worse for them. Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
And our anger, like, is for you too. And that's the thing, is like, we're upset because this is happening to all of us, whether you hate us or, you know, want to tell us to cry more, or you're going to drink our liberal tears or whatever bullshit it is that you tell yourself. Like, we're upset for you too, even though we don't agree with you and you don't agree with us. Because really what happens to you happens to all of us. What happens to us happens to you. And that's really what this is about. And unfortunately, I mean, assuming that they ever realize really what is happening, it will be too late. It will be way too late.
And I might not give a shit about them, and frankly, I don't, but I care about their, you know, tangential, innocent people in their lives, like the children, right? Like, I'm worried about the kids in freaking Missouri and Idaho and Florida who might have to go work in a meatpacking transplant and might only be able to go to a school if they're lucky 50 miles away and get to listen to their education on a freaking Walkman. I'm worried for those kids. I'm worried for a 10-year-old who's going to be forced to have, the byproduct of her rape. I am worried for those people because they don't get a say, and the people making the decisions for them don't think about what the implications of those decisions will have on the people they love until it is too late, until their wife is miscarrying and she's dying in her living room because the Texas hospital she went to 4 times sent her back home because there was still a fetal heartbeat. All of a sudden, they're going to go, what? Why won't anyone help me? And it's because you let them do this. You did not stand up and say no. And I don't maybe give a shit about a lot of you who tell me to cry harder, but your children, your loved ones, people who didn't sign up for this, your pets, I feel bad for all of them. I actually do. So maybe that's mean. I don't give a shit.
And those rural hospitals, for those of us you're telling to cry harder, like I live within a mile of about 5 hospitals. Like I'm going to be okay if something happens to me, if there's an emergency. You people living in your rural communities, which overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, you're not going to have any hospitals because if they can't get Medicaid reimbursement, they're going to shut down. That's not them being liberal. That's not them being conspiratorial. That's not them sticking it to you because they're angry. They don't have the money. The money comes from the federal government. It comes from Medicaid reimbursements. That's all there is to it.
Oh, and by the way, in the chat, they're making fun of me for saying your pets. Oh, you think that somebody who's like stripped bare of anything, any expenditures that they can't afford, like anything is going to be like, oh, my priority right now is feeding and caring for my pets? No, they're not. So yeah, I do. I guess I was being a little bit tongue in cheek, but yeah, I actually do worry for their pets, you idiot.
Yeah, but it's going to be you guys. Like, so don't tell us to cry harder because the truth of the matter is you rely on these government services a hell of a lot more than those of us living in the New York metropolitan area. It's just a fact. Yeah, it is just a fact. Yeah, I don't really drive. I don't really need the roads to be in great shape. Like I'll be okay. Yeah, I'll be okay.
Real.
But you guys are not going to be okay. And the reality is that disproportionately, he's hurting you. But if you're telling Joe to cry harder over your pets, then you're probably the kind of guy that doesn't have a problem deporting the father of an autistic kid to El Salvador, admitting that it was a mistake. They're not even debating.
Yeah, and they're not do anything to fix it.
Yeah. And then
JD Couchfucker Vance is trying to gaslight the country by saying, he was in fact in a gang, which is demonstrably false and provably false. But JD Vance has become America's vice troll. Now that is his job because we have co-president Phony Stark. So JD doesn't have a lane. So his job is to literally go onto Twitter and respond to reporters with lies. That is his job. So JD Vance knows better. And by the way, JD Vance, honestly, I'm waiting for Eskimo Elegy to drop because he knows as much about who he is as he does about how to do a real smoky eye. JD girl.
Wow.
But that's what they're doing. The vice president of the United States of America, who replaced the guy they tried to hang, by the way, is gaslighting the entire country into believing an absolute lie to justify something that is, don't call it deporting. It's not even deporting. We have to stop using that word. Someone very near and dear to me said it's disappearing, it's kidnapping, it's abducting. That's what it is. And JD Vance is like, cry harder. This is what we voted for. This is what you voted for.
By the way, who's he trolling? Because his own Justice Department, signed by Yakov Roth, who, by the way, is a former attorney from Jones Day, and my husband has worked with him and is an excellent attorney. But Yakov Roth, who now is the deputy AG for whatever this thing is, filed literally a brief yesterday saying, we made a mistake. We made a mistake, but we can't get him back because we don't have any jurisdiction over El Salvador, which of course is complete and utter bullshit. But that's not the point. The point is that who are you trolling, JD Vance? Because your own Justice Department is telling people that you're a liar. So get your story straight, at least amongst yourselves, before taking it out for a ride among the rest of us.
Good point. Excellent point.
And there's something so cynical. There's something about JD Vance, even though he is a total fraud and doesn't know who he is, or he does know who he is and he hates it and is mad at everybody else for getting to live their authentic lives when he can't. There is something so deeply sinister in his eyes when I see him speak. He scares the living shit out of me because he is so extreme. And he is so void of any sort of empathy or humanity. And it's just like that he is a true believer, I think, of the things that Peter Thiel believes in, who is like his Frankenstein.
Yeah,
I think he's an avatar for whoever can help him.
That too. Yeah.
Like JD Vance. I never read Hillbilly Elegy because, whatever. I just never saw the movie.
Not missing much.
Yeah, couldn't care less. But my understanding is he grew up in a rural community in Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
And so he grew up among people who were on Medicaid.
Yeah.
He grew up among people who were going to get, I think there's a lot about overdoses there, who were going to the emergency room to get whatever medicine you have stuck into your heart. I'm just thinking from Pulp Fiction because that's the extent of my knowledge about ways to cure overdoses. But I mean, they're going to the ER to get whatever they need to address that. Those hospitals will not exist. So anybody who has any kind of sympathy and empathy, which I know empathy is a dirty word because Elon Musk told us publicly that empathy is the end of Western civilization. But if you're a normal human being and not this phony Stark, as Joe calls him, and not some robot designed by some like South African Nazis in some, cave somewhere in South Africa. But if you're a human being, especially if you are a good Christian, as all these people are, what the hell do you think the golden rule is? What do you think, do unto others as you would have done unto you? Love thy neighbor as yourself. I believe that's in Matthew. I don't know. I'm misremembering my Bible verses here. But the point is, every single major religion, from Buddhism to Judaism to Christianity to in between, has some version of the golden rule in it. That is empathy.
Yeah.
That is all that is. So if you want to pretend that you're a good Christian, I don't. I'm not. But the rest of them all do.
Yeah.
Why don't you abide by it?
Yeah. I think JD Vance, Donald Trump, et cetera, at all. I think Elon Musk too. I think a lot of the source of what ails them and what is now being subjected on us or forced upon us has to do with unresolved trauma. We've talked about this a bunch of times. I mean, but JD is like really walking, talking unresolved childhood trauma trauma on display. He has so many issues. Like his mother struggled with addiction, and then there was, this revolving door of men, and this that he would have relationships with. He would see as father figures, and then they would disappear, and this sort of like topsy-turvy, unsteady, really volatile stuff was going on at a very formative age that he is, I'm not a psychologist at all. Obviously, I'm just an advocate for therapy and trying to get to the root of like what it is that is going on. But he very much wants to punish other people for what was done to him. Like that's the sinister thing, Michelle. That's what I think you can see in his eyes, like, and you feel it in his presence. Because I mean, getting back to Signalgate, and I'll just kind of segue that to my over it because it tangentially has to do with Signalgate. I mean, not tangentially, it is. Well, yes, it does. But he was upset that we might be helping Europe not have their ships, attacked. That in that chat, he was upset that our allies in Europe might benefit from us taking out some Houthis, because they would have a clear lane. And like that's the kind of person he is. I mean, he wants to, no fault divorce, et cetera, et cetera. Again, to your point, Julie, like hurting people that he grew up around, the poorest people, people who struggle with addiction. He doesn't care because he wants other people to feel pain because he never resolved his own. You could go off on that all day. But so just to segue to my over it real fast, because it is Pete fucking Hegseth.
Mine too.
Not,
go ahead.
well, this time it's not enough for the Secretary of Scotch and Soda to lie about what they discussed in that Signal chat, war plans, attack plans, whatever. It's not enough. Now that piece of shit who serves a 5-time draft dodger who mocked a POW, picked a fight with a Gold Star family, insulted a military widow, and called the fallen of war suckers and losers, Pete Hegseth, who sups at that motherfucker's taint, has now decided that the military, for combat roles, that they will have the same standards for men and women. Why? This is part indicative of this overall attack on women. Why did he say that we need to do this? Because the standards have slipped. Really? This is them again gaslighting us into thinking there's been a problem in our military where the standards have slipped. And this one hits me just really personally because I won't say who, but I have a family member I'm very, very close to who served in combat in an airplane in a very critical role in that airplane. And she did a hell of a fucking job. And she had to go through all the same training. But, maybe she wouldn't have been able to run a mile as fast as a man. And for Pete Hegseth to say that someone like that is not as qualified to do the job as a dude based on how much weight they can lift or whatever the fuck it is, that is madness. And it goes back to this 9-layer dip of rapists that is this administration and the normalization of the attack and sexualization of women and girls. I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm so fucking over it. And somebody said to me at a baseball game yesterday, it's obviously going to be the women. It's going to be the women who fix this. And no offense to our allies. There are great men out there. I'm very, very lucky to be surrounded by some who are absolutely incredible. One of which is very special to me and makes me a better person. No offense to any of them. They're very important and we value you. But women are under attack. There is no mistake about it. And we are going to and are rising up and speaking out about it. And I'm over it. I'm over the attack on women. I'm over Pete fucking Hegseth. And I'm over this bullshit role in combat, role in the military shit. That's it.
Where is Joni Ernst? Like, hello.
Yeah.
Senator.
Yes. Thank you.
Like, where are you, Joni Ernst? A sexual assault survivor who was in the military and has run consistently on two things. One is being a sexual assault survivor and two, serving in the military.
Yep.
Under these standards, she would be maybe filing papers in the military. Like, listen, I interviewed a woman a few years ago who wrote this incredible book, which I will tweet out because it's such an incredible book. But she grew up in a cult, and it was a cult, like a child rapist cult. Like her mom grew up in it; she was third generation, where these girls from the age of she said by the time she was 6, she didn't know how many men she had had sex with.
My
because it was just passed around because that's you find God, whatever this cult was saying, basically. Anyway, the point is at the age of, they were living in Mexico, they were living in Asia, because obviously you can't do that here. You can't do that there either, but I think it was not. This cult felt safer being outside the United States. And she then, at the age of 15, was emancipated, moved to Texas on her own, not knowing pretty much anybody. Raised herself, got herself into college where I think she graduated cum laude or something, or no, maybe she was valedictorian, but some incredible story. And then she enlisted in the military. And she enlisted in the military and was so heroic in Iraq that she got all sorts of medals. She was honored by Barack Obama at the White House.
Wow. Until
she was sexually assaulted on deployment. And she said it's just a question of when and not if. You're a woman, you're assaulted on deployment. He ran, I guess, when they have the Boston Marathon here, I guess maybe back then in Iraq, they emulate the Boston Marathon there. She won it. She beat the men.
Wow.
I mean, she's that good. And she had to leave the military because she spoke up about being assaulted and she was penalized, which is, of course, what happens, right?
Yep.
Because the men will, if I were Joni Ernst, not the Joni Ernst who used to care about this stuff, but if I were Joni Ernst, that's what I would be focusing on.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of women we need. This is what you need in the military. And instead, not only are you pushing them out because of sexual assault, but you're also pushing them out because apparently they can't bench press whatever Pete Hegseth bench presses, which, by the way, then brings me to my over it if we could run that clip for a moment. This is the fucking, sorry, Dad, Secretary of Defense of the United States cosplaying a tough guy, watching some soldier do push-ups. I mean, what? And it brings me to my over it, which is I'm so over these guys cosplaying tough guys.
Yeah.
Because we all know what good men are. And they're not men who have to show off their strength, constantly show off their bodies, constantly talk about how much they can bench press, constantly applaud other men, which is in a very weird way, watching them do push-ups. Like, what are you, gym teacher?
Yeah.
And you know, that's what a real man, by the way, are there any men on this? Take it from a woman and take it from the other women here. I think it could speak for all of us. That's what a real man is. It's the opposite of that. And this is a man who's been credibly accused of sexual assault, who was credibly accused of drunkenness at work, credibly accused of mishandling money at work. But he looks the part and he looks tough. And this is what passes for toughness for Donald Trump. The same as Robert F. Kennedy Jr., another accused sexual assailant, who was also doing push-ups shirtless. Are you kidding me?
So
are you kidding me? What and what are the women supposed to do? Parade around in their bikinis, like, you know, doing this?
Bless you.
What are we? What is this bullshit? Why are we having people in positions of power cosplaying real men? Because this is
yet,
man.
And yet Zelensky shows up in the Oval Office and dressed in solidarity with his soldiers, right? Meanwhile, friggin' Kid Rock shows up dressed in solidarity with Evel Knievel. Nobody raises an alarm.
Evel Knievel, stop.
I totally stole that. But Julie, like Zelensky embodies manliness, embodies masculinity, embodies bravery and toughness and resilience and resolve. And they denigrate him because he's not there dressed in a, you know, tuxedo, basically. But yeah, I'm sorry. To your point, Pete Hegseth is a tough guy. Donald Trump is a tough guy, right? Because he paints himself orange and wears lifts in his shoes and wears a girdle and has a 14-step comb over with the 5 surviving hairs on the top of his fucking head. Their idea of masculinity is so upside down, inside out, and on fire. It's bonkers.
Women are laughing at you, my men. Like, we laugh at you when you pull stunts like this.
Yeah.
And there's a reason. Sorry.
Yeah, but I don't really think they're impressing. That's obviously each other, because in the real world, nobody's impressed.
Right. Can you imagine a guy dropping down on a first date, just doing 10 push-ups? I'd be like, bye. See ya.
If I walked in on my husband watching some guy do push-ups while wearing a suit and then being like, I would ask him, first of all, if he's quitting the practice of law to go work at a middle school gym and like make sure 7th graders can do push-ups. Like, sorry, like, you are literally putting war plans out on Signal on your private phone. And instead of focusing on maybe that, you're watching some rando do push-ups and you're like, oh, bravo, my man. You could do what? Push-ups?
They always
do push-ups. Like, okay, great. Why don't you go to the New York Sports Club down the street and watch somebody do push-ups there? Like,
oh my God. Well, he probably does. And the thing is, it's like they always have to make excuses or come up with excuses to either like touch each other or look at each other or like something like that. And I'm like, and this is again just repressed, just disconnect with other human beings through their whole lives, and they've been told like that their value. And this is where patriarchy really, really, really hurts everybody, not just men. It hurts, or sorry, not just women. It hurts men too. And this is why, I mean, this is maybe a topic for another show, but why there is this epidemic, so to speak, of singledom and loneliness with men, which women, of course, are being blamed for, but it really has more to do with women kind of realizing their own worth and being, you know, elder millennials and Gen Xers being the most educated, most independent, financial generation of women to exist ever. And women don't want to do that. And they don't seem to understand that this idea of masculinity is not what women are attracted to. It's not what women want to partner with. And women are looking at this going, no, I don't feel safe. I don't feel loved. I don't feel any of these things. I don't feel taken care of or challenged emotionally or mentally. And so all these men are kind of just hanging out by themselves, listening to Joe Rogan and all these other podcasts where they tell them, you know, you're not man enough unless you do this. You're not man enough unless you do this. And no one's dating you because women are too picky and women have standards that are unreasonable, and it's all their fault. It's not your fault. It's really,
which is why they're celebrating rape and sexual assault, because you should just be able to take it. You should just be able to take it.
You know what women want, like men who might be listening to this, because I was single for a very long time and I'm now married, but I've had my share of bad dating experiences. I've had my share of good dating experiences. All women want is for somebody to treat them like a human being, like talk to girls, just talk to us, right? Like we're normal, co-equal human beings. And sometimes you might be our cup of tea, and sometimes you'll be some other woman's cup of tea. And sometimes it'll take you a while to find the person whose cup of tea you are.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is this performative cosplaying of what real men are supposed to look like is not what women think real men should look like.
No.
Right.
And like Jesse Waters is like, by the way, guys, it's not manly. It's gay to eat soup, or it's
and say happy birthday.
Drink out of a straw. I'm like, what?
You guys, again, I worked with all these clowns. Like I know Waters. Like the reality about Jesse, limited because I have an NDA, but like the reality about Jesse Waters is he's just some dude from Long Island.
Yeah. Who has to slash the tires of some woman to like spend time with him
while his wife is home with their babies.
Well, then he left her for somebody he worked with. But
when he slashed the tires or let the air out of the tire. Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, like, don't slash the air out of some woman's tire. Just talk to her. Like,
yeah, that's so weird and creepy.
Maybe she won't want to talk to you. Maybe she'll say, you know what, Jesse, like, I'm not the right person for you. So then find somebody else. You don't need to resort to slashing tires. You don't need to resort to doing push-ups in your, sweatpants and nothing else, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You don't need to resort to Pete Hegseth showing off his buff body all the time on social media with shirtless. Like, you don't need to do that.
But this is the special sauce, Julie, no pun intended. And I just threw up my mouth a little bit. But this is what it is. These utterly unexceptional men who really, honestly, nobody would be like, yeah, you're the best at blank. They need to feel exceptional in some way, shape, or form. And women are not going to give that to them because they organically just don't deserve it. So who gives it to them is this artificial, manufactured machinery of Charlie Kirk and Turning Point and all of that fucking, no, I see you, dude. You're part of this clan and that's them, not you. You're not the problem. That is so powerful. That is so like, we're talking about permission structure. Like you can suck at everything, dude. You can sit in your mom's basement and give Lubriderm all your fucking money all day long. But it's not your fault that you can't find a chick. We got your back. Like that's what they're giving them. And then when you have utterly unexceptional looking and organically unattractive men like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Pete Hegseth. Okay, Pete Hegseth is not ugly, but Donald Trump and Elon Musk are like, honestly not attractive. And they have believed that most of their privileged lives that they can take what they want to. And this is the thing.
Well, because when you're a star, you can do it.
Right.
Do you guys remember WAP? Remember that song WAP?
Oh yeah, WAP.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, Ben Shapiro was.
Oh my God, that was. Oh God.
Remember Ben Shapiro? Yeah, and Ben Shapiro was like, "I am married to a doctor," and she said that just does not happen. And everybody's like, "Maybe because she's married to you." But I mean, the point is
telling on yourself there, Ben.
But the point is like
telling on himself.
And when that was happening, I have a very, very, very close friend who I went to high school with. Her son, who's now snapped out of it, but I think it was in the 7th I think it was like in the 8th or 9th grade at that point. And he was listening to Ben Shapiro all the time. And she called me. She goes, "Can you please have a chat with him?" And I said, "I'm happy to, but do you think you'll listen to me?" She said, "I don't know. He's really gone down this rabbit hole." And this is a 14-year-old boy, 14, 15, 13, however old he was, who was being conditioned at a very ripe age to believe this stuff. Luckily, his parents got a hold of him and snapped him out of it. But the reality is like, and then no wonder they get to college and they're told that these women who don't want to give them the time of day, and P.S., there are always going to be women in college who don't give you the time of day. There are always going to be guys in college who don't give you the time of day. That's the whole point of college. You're going to get blown off. And they are angry and upset because, well, of course, this is what Ben Shapiro and all these guys told us was going to happen. These women their standards are too high, and look at me, and I worked really hard to get here. If they even go to college, or I'm working as a mechanic, whatever they do, it doesn't matter. And these women are not giving you the time of day. They're going to give you the time of day if you actually just treat them like normal.
You'd be surprised what kindness and just compassion and genuine, I mean, actual genuine, not put on interest into who you are or what it is, the things that you care about or passionate about, or your family, whatever it is. I mean, again, women can see through this shit. And listen, if you don't believe us, read the comments here. What we're looking at right now in our comment section is a
your old bra, like
master class.
It's stop hating men all day. We don't go outside. Okay, they're
here. They're here spending their time rage jerking on while we're on the screen because their lives are so exceptional.
Right.
That's what they do with their time. Thank you for that. By the way.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's because we stream this show to the Seneca Project YouTube and Twitter. Joe, her Twitter, Julie's Twitter. So we see the comments from literally everybody, wherever anyone is seeing our show. And so, there's always a few, and it's always like some form of misogyny or women hating, usually attacking our looks or our age, or like calling us, unmarried losers, which no. And, and sometimes, like, even for Seneca Project, the emails that we get are violent, threatening sexual violence, like all kinds of things like this. And, to be a woman who speaks up and speaks her mind and is independently in her thought is a huge threat to these people. And, and that's where I'd actually like to maybe end today on some better news about the congresswoman from Colorado and the Republicans who stood up for her. These men, some of them men, I'm reading the headline here. House Republicans torpedo Mike Johnson's effort to block proxy voting for new parents. Brittany Pedersen is her name, and she was the new mom who they were not allowing her to vote via proxy in the House. They were not allowing her to, yet we're allowing Byron Donalds to when he flew to Los Angeles to be on Bill Maher's show, and he was posting photos on his Instagram from the green room and all, that was fine. But a new mom who, first of all, could not fly later in her pregnancy, she because it's just not safe, especially from that kind of distance. So she had to bring her 4-week-old newborn baby to the House in order to vote very early on in this.
Totally unsafe. They don't have their vaccine.
Right.
Not that vaccines are anything these people care about, but they're not vaccinated yet. It's really unsafe to bring a baby that young on a plane.
Right. So they were trying to block this ability for a new parent to vote via proxy, and 9 Republicans crossed over to join the Democrats in protecting this ability to do that. And I'd love to show the clip of her talking about this on the floor with her baby.
When I hear from members about their stories, whether they're a mom or a dad, doing this job, having a newborn who's in the NICU and having to make the choice of whether or not to leave their child or come here to vote. It is unfathomable that in 2025, we have not modernized Congress to address these very unique challenges that members face. These life events where our voices should still be heard, our constituents should still be represented. But we're asking you to continue to stand with us, because no mom or dad should be in the position that I was in and so many parents have found themselves in. It is anti-woman, it's anti-family, and we need to come together to make sure that we kill this rule and have the opportunity to pass this resolution to make sure that new parents have the ability to continue to represent their constituents. And with that, I yield back.
Love it.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
really
and
good stuff.
Hope. It was part of that salad of success yesterday. That
yesterday was an amazing day. Yep. And I feel like, you know what? Before we depart, April 1st, 2025. Remember that date, not just because it was April Fool's, because none of this is a joke. I truly believe that's when we started to turn the page.
I believe so. There's a shift in the force. And between her and Cory Booker and Wisconsin and the 20-point shift in Florida, which, by the way, I was looking at the numbers for New York 21. It makes even more sense now why they put Elise Stefanik, they made her walk of shame back to rural America because that was about a 20-point, a plus 20 for Trump in that district. And with a three-way race with a MAGA, a conservative, and a moderate Democrat, there really was a path for Blake Genevieve to win. And they saw that writing on the wall. I'm sure they certainly see it now. But it was a good day yesterday. It was a good day with good news. And it's so rare that we hear good news and see good news and feel like, wow, we're not in this alone. We're not in this alone. We are in this together. And while some things, cannot be salvaged right now, and that's just, I'm just being honest. And I talked to someone yesterday who is in this space. I can't really say who it is or what they do, but they're in the space of what's happening with Doge and all this dismantling of our country right now. And he's like, listen, I'm going to be real with you. We cannot save some of these government, functions and agencies. But what we can do is we can talk about them as much as possible. We can get as much information out as we possibly can. So when the day comes, and it will come, that we can rebuild, we will have that to build upon. And, it is the American people, to Cory Booker's point. That was my favorite part of his 25 hours and 4 minutes, is he's like, it is the will of the American people. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. Yeah. We, us. And I said that to another friend of mine who is at HHS, who's going through hell right now. And because she's really traumatized for what's going on. And I said to her, I was like, you are brave, you are strong. And I'm going to say it again. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. It is up to us, and the power is in our hands.
Yeah, and we're seeing it across the country in ruby red districts too. I mean, the will of the American people is strong, and
that's right.
And I really do believe in the promise of America. And I know so many people are like, you know what? I didn't really want to lose this little precious experiment of ours. I know, I really don't. And I think, yesterday gave me so much hope. And it's not making everything better. It's not a Band-Aid for the worst of the worst. It's not going to bring that father back to the United States to be with his family. I pray that it might, but probably not. But it is something, and it is empowering. And every step forward we take, in that direction is a step toward a future that we all want to build with each other and for each other. So,
and I want to build on that just really quick is the SAVE Act, which is the bill that has been introduced many, many times over in many Congresses, that was essentially going to make any voter prove their identity or at their birthright. So basically, any married woman who may have taken her husband's last name would have to either present a passport, which is essentially a poll tax for people, or have to come with their birth certificate to match up, which our birth certificate would have a different last name. And so what it would do essentially is disenfranchise millions and millions of American women from their right to vote. And this is something that the House was going to vote on this week. And because of this block on Mike Johnson and Brittany Pedersen, whose clip that we just saw, he said, we're not able to even go forward with any votes this week, including the SAVE Act, which he was, of course, praising. It was going to be this great thing for voter integrity, which it's not. But because of that, all of that's going to be delayed. And again, delay. Yeah. And that's the power we have.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. A couple programming notes. I am going to do my usual Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Substack Live with Olga Lautman tomorrow. If anybody wants to join us there for Pax Americana, we are going to be talking about foreign policy for people who are interested in how Russia is taking over our country. Michelle, I believe you and I are going to, I'm pretending to be Tara on Thursday with you tomorrow on the stage.
Yes. You and my friend Anna are coming on the show tomorrow night to talk about your family's history with fascism in Europe and the stories that you both carry and what we can learn from that. So it's going to be a very interesting and personal episode of The Stakes tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Joe,
and shameless plug for me too. I'm very excited because I'm in a totally different vein, but also very necessary because laughter is medicine. Tomorrow on Substack at 3 p.m. Eastern, Steve Hofstetter, comedian Steve Hofstetter, will be joining me live. Steve is brand new to Substack. Steve has not only made me laugh for a very long time. When I was at my lowest, and literally my friends were donating groceries and putting them in my car. Steve Hofstetter had my back, and he was encouraging me and including me and, you know, introducing me to people and lifting me up all the time. He's as good a person as you'll ever meet, but he's also funny as fuck. Sorry, Julie's dad. I'm so excited to have that conversation because Steve makes me laugh, and God knows we could sure use laughter right now.
Yeah.
So that's tomorrow,
Love
3
that.
o'clock Substack Live.
Love that.
Oh, and I just want to say just one more thing, that the Seneca Project and our ad American Girl, which was
Yes.
viral, we have been nominated for a Webby Award. And we
Yes.
are so, so proud and thrilled because the Seneca Project, if you aren't aware, we only started last June, just Tara and myself. We started with our own money and no help from any other organization. And the fact that we've been able to do this with such little resources and so much willpower, we are the little engine that could. And so we would not be here without the support of the people who believe in us and believe in this mission. And so we need your vote. There's a People's Voice Award that they give out at the Webbies as well. And if you want to go to senecaproject.us and go to the top of our website, there's a link there to vote for us for the Webby Awards, which I think the voting ends in another couple weeks. So we'll have many other opportunities to remind you. But we are just so, so proud and so happy. You know,
So well
couldn't have
earned.
asked for a better, couldn't have asked for a better yesterday. Again, we found out yesterday, another great news yesterday. So yeah.
Best political content you will ever find.
Yes.
Your best.
Sure. And then everybody join us on Saturday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Over It Coffee and Conversation. Bring your coffee, bring your Bloody Mary.
That sounds good.
Yep.
Your-
Bring your cardboard and markers and make your sign before you go out to protest for the National Day of Demonstration on Saturday. So we'll
We'll make signs
start the
together.
day with us. Yeah.
All right, everybody. See you later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.